Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Mom on the Verge podcast, where I aim to help you improve your sense of joy, purpose, and meaning in this life. We will talk about a lot of different ways we can do this, but ultimately, we'll be working toward finding our way back home to ourselves and remembering that even in the most challenging times, peace is only a breath away. I am your host, Katie Farinas, a mom, nurse, and yogi on a mission to improve mental health and build community in our world. Before we start the show, I do want to apologize up front. There was some background noise that I couldn't get out of the episode. I am recording actually in my bedroom because I'm still sick. So I don't have my usual setup. And so there was some background noise and I apologize for that. I also wanted to ask you a favor. I really wanted to ask that you help raise awareness about the show. If you listen to the show, if you found it helpful, if you've implemented any of these things we've talked about into your life, if it's made you feel better, if it's made you feel seen and understood, if it's made you laugh ever, if this show has helped you at all, I would just so greatly appreciate that you rate, review, or most importantly, share the show with someone else. It could be just a particular episode that you text over to them, or it could be just word of mouth, anything to just get the word out. I would truly, truly appreciate it. Okay, have a wonderful listen. I hope this resonates with you. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the show. Before we dive in, today is going to be a solo episode, and we are going back to one of the yamas and niyamas. If you have not heard any of my other episodes on the yamas and niyamas, I will link them in the show notes. But basically, they are the kind of ethical guidelines or tenets of yoga. And they are less about rules and more about guidance on how to live life well with the least amount of pain and suffering and the most amount of joy and ease. And so we are going through them one at a time, with each episode describing one of the yamas or one of the niyamas. And so today we are going through and we are talking about number 6. I'm not going in order. I just kind of have done them as they've actually come up in my own personal life. And I will be speaking to that today on today's episode. So we are talking about number 6, Aparigraha, which translates into non-attachment, non-greed, non-possessiveness, non-grasping, or non-clinging. And we will go into so much more depth with that. But before we do, I just wanted to throw out a really fun thing that I just came up with a friend of mine. And we're going to see how many people are on board with this. And if you guys seem to think it would be a fun thing to do, then we'll do it. I have a friend of mine who's been on the podcast twice. Her name is Karen Canting-Brunings. She also was in my Mom on the Verge Summit, and she is also a life coach. And we thought it would be really fun to do a series on Mom on the Verge called Coffee with Coaches, where people would send in their burning questions for life coaches, anything that they really wanted to have answered, any topic, any question, and we would spend the time talking about whatever that question was that someone sent in. And to make it even more fun, we thought, if the person was interested, the person who sent in the question was interested, we would definitely give them a shout out to whoever it is who poses the question. But if they wanted to, they could actually come on the show and have the conversation with us and get to ask all the questions, all the follow-up questions that inevitably come when you answer one question, right? It's never just one question. It always leads to more questions. So thought this would be a really fun, interactive way to get to know my listeners. So if you have any burning questions that you would love to ask a life coach and get their perspective on, you can email me at katie@momontheverge.org. you can send me a private message on Instagram, Katie Mom and Yogi. And again, I'll put all those things in the show notes. So I hope you guys have some questions. I hope you send them in. I think it would be really fun. We could maybe do like a once a month episode with Karen and I, and potentially the person who sent the question in. Also, I just want to remind you that I have a freebie on my website. It's a journal, 3 journal prompts for discovering your Dharma. If you've done that and you really liked it and it helped you get to a certain point, but you just feel like you need a little bit more, I also have a workbook, 5 Paths to Discovering Your Dharma, that I can link in the show notes. That one is only $20. So for $20, you can download that, and it provides a lot more detail than the journals. And then after you've done that, if you still want more work, then, message me, book a free consultation call, and we can chat about how we can work together. Okay, so jumping into Aparigraha. So like I said, this is typically known as non-attachment or non-clinging or non-grasping. And it applies to all areas of our life. So it applies to material possessions, not, possessing more than we actually need, and not hoarding those possessions. It applies to food in the same capacity as material possessions. But I think the most important way that we can implement this into our lives, and this probably the sneakiest way that it shows up, is in our minds, the way that we think and behave related to our thoughts. So our minds are really quite fond of attaching to ideas, to our preferred emotions, right? Like happiness, excitement, joy. We really prefer those emotions. Desired outcomes, right? We usually have a pretty clear idea in our minds how we want things to go, whether it be the outcome of a work project, or some sort of project at home, or a party that we're throwing, or even, an interaction with our partner, with our children, or with a friend, right? We have ideas in our minds about how we think it is best for something to play out, and we get really attached to that idea. Our self-image, right? How we see ourselves and how we want the world to see us. We get very attached to our self-image, and usually hold on to that pretty tightly, because it's destabilizing, right? It feels destabilizing to let go of that. Our viewpoints, we're obviously in election season right now, so viewpoints about, political candidates and what's going on in the world, those things are huge hot button topics right now, and we get very attached to our viewpoints. Our beliefs, whether they be religious beliefs or our parenting beliefs, educational beliefs, there's so many belief systems out there that we subscribe to and become very attached to. Even our routines, right? How many of us get really thrown off when something in our daily routine gets rearranged, or what we would consider to be messed up because life intervenes, right? And also our relationships, we get so attached to our relationships and how we think that those relationships should operate. So whether it be, material possessions creating clutter in our homes, in our physical spaces, our offices, or wherever we are, or clutter from these mental blocks of being attached to some of the things that I was mentioning, our ability to grow and expand and really truly enjoy life is hindered when we don't allow ourselves to let go, to be unattached, to release our grasp, to not cling or be possessive of those things. And when we do cling and attach, it has the ability to ruin our day. It has the ability to ruin our relationship, our bodies, our work, our homes. When we cling so tightly to what we think something should be, then we miss the opportunity to see what it is. And at some point, what we hold on to actually holds us. It binds us, and it makes us deeply dissatisfied with anything that falls outside of our expectations. And I'm going to give you lots of examples, but I'm going to start with a brief example. Maybe it's not going to be so brief, I don't know, but from my own personal life, the reason why this came up for me. So I recently went on vacation with my family, and I was very excited about this vacation. If you listen to some of my previous episodes, I gave you a little tidbit of this. I'd been working like crazy because of the summit. Between that and, I still work as a nurse. So between the two things, I'd really been working nonstop. My husband also had a particularly busy couple of months at work. He also had been working and traveling nonstop. I had been feeling like I really just was not getting to spend enough time with the kids, good quality time over their summer. So I was just like so excited to get away, be together as a family, spend quality time. We went to Mont Tremblant, Canada, to be in a beautiful area of the world where typically when I go to places like that, I experience really wonderful feelings of awe and peace and expansion and just like a deep sense of connection with the earth and with the universe and with all beings, that like truly connected, peaceful sense. I had ideas about what we were going to do together as a family, the activities we were going to participate in. I had so many expectations for this vacation. And attachments, right? Not just expectations, but attachment to this is how I envisioned this vacation. This is how I wanted this vacation to go. And it was very sneaky, as all of these things are in our lives, right? I didn't set out to say I am attached to this particular version of this vacation that I have envisioned. And if it doesn't happen like this, then the vacation is ruined. I didn't think that in my mind. It just kind of snuck up on me that I was attached to this idea of what this vacation was going to be. And so here's what happened in reality. We drove up to Canada. The morning that we were to leave for vacation, my daughter was not up packing. I thought that was very odd. And so I went into her room and I found her there, and she was sick. She struggles with migraines. If you're a listener of this show, you know that. She's pretty severe migraine disease. And she said she had a horrible migraine and she didn't, think that she could get into the car and drive the almost 9 hours to Mont Tremblant. And so immediately, of course, I felt bad for her, of course, as her mom, but also felt like a really serious sense of disappointment. I was so looking forward to to leaving and experiencing all these things. And so we decided to postpone the trip in hopes that she would start to feel better. And as the day went on, she realized it wasn't just a migraine, but that actually she was sick. So often, if you've never had migraine or you don't know anyone with migraine is very confusing because it's a systemic disease, right? So often we just think about it as head pain. That's, for people outside the migraine community, that's what they think a migraine is pain in your head. But it's a systemic disease, which means that you feel lots of things throughout your entire body that often make you feel as though you are sick, even though you are not sick, you just have a migraine. So sometimes it can be, I shouldn't say just have a migraine, you have a migraine. Sometimes it can be very confusing as to whether you are sick with a migraine or just have a migraine. But it became clear as the day went on that no, she actually was also sick. And so we decided to try to wait and postpone the trip in hopes that she would get better. So that was the first day. The second day, she really wasn't feeling any better. The third day, she really wasn't feeling any better. And we were left with the difficult decision of what do we do? Do we just cancel the trip entirely? Do we leave her home and go? Does one of us go, one adult go with my son? Because this was also his summer vacation, so we didn't want him to miss out, where one adult stays home. My parents happen to live literally 2 minutes from my house. So we decided that we would have her stay home, my parents would look after her, and the three of us would go. And so that was the first, major diversion from the vision that I had that we would all be together spending, all this great quality time together. And so then we drove up, and the rest of the week proceeded to be one disappointment after another. The weather was terrible. It rained to some degree every single day. I personally am very triggered. My migraines are very triggered by weather. And so I had a migraine every single day we were up there. Everything that we planned turned into some sort of disaster and didn't work out. Things were canceled last minute, and we lost money. My son wound up getting sick at some point. I know my daughter, who we had left home and said that she was fine to leave home and my parents were with her, her anxiety spiked through the roof, which she has been doing beautifully with her anxiety now for over a year. And I had to be in touch with her psychiatrist, and we were thinking about increasing her medications. And it was as far from quality family time, relaxation, all of those feelings that I thought I was going to feel, that awe and that connection and that joy and that peace. It was as far from those things as you could possibly get. And I found myself becoming very upset about it, very sad, angry, frustrated, all of these feelings that really took me by surprise. I'll be quite honest. They took me by surprise, and I had to stop a moment and ask myself, like, what is going on here? Why is this throwing you in the way that it is? People sometimes have vacations that don't work out that well, and it's, a drop in the bucket in comparison to so many other bigger things that are going on in my own personal life and in the world. Like, why is this really so hard for you in this moment? And I realized that I was so attached. I was so attached to what I thought that this vacation was going to be. And the outcome was so different from what I had become attached to, that I was suffering. And that the only way to stop the suffering was to drop into the present moment and allow it to be what it was. But I'll be honest, I was really, really struggling to do that. So we finished up the vacation with my son being sick. We had to drive home with him being sick. And then we got home about 8:00 on a Friday night, and I had to work 2 12-hour shifts, Saturday and Sunday. And by Sunday, I was at work sick as a dog. So it really came full circle. And I can laugh at it now. I can laugh at the whole thing now. But it made me really stop and say, I think it's time to do a podcast episode on Aparigraha, because as I experience this, everybody else experiences this. And sometimes it's like I said, it's very sneaky, and we don't realize that we are suffering because of our attachments. And so I'm going to go through, that's a personal example. I'm going to go through some other, I think, really common examples, things that will likely resonate with you. And one of them actually comes from the Bhagavad Gita, which is an ancient yogic text. And it's a story between a warrior and his chariotsman. But unbeknownst to him, the warrior actually doesn't know that the chariotsman is basically the divine, is basically God, and they're having a conversation. And he's struggling. The warrior is struggling because he has to go into battle and he doesn't want to. And in this battle, he actually has to fight against people he loves and he cares about. And he's really internally, he's having an internal battle with himself about whether this is right or wrong, what he's about to do. And the character that is the divine in disguise says, let your concern be with the action alone and never with the fruits of the action. Do not let the results of your action be your motive, and do not be attached to inaction. So that is basically a way of saying our only concern should be on the present moment and doing the action to the best of our ability in that present moment. And the outcome is not our concern. So examples of this would be like a work project or schoolwork, right? How often do we find ourselves spinning because we are worried that the outcome of the project is not going to be good enough? Our boss is not going to like it. We're going to get a bad grade. We're going to be judged. Something's going to go wrong, right? You have this whole plan, but something's going to fall through and it's going to go wrong. And we really spin ourselves into quite a tizzy over these concerns about the fruits of our labor, the actions, the outcomes of our actions. And what they're saying here is that is not your concern. Your concern is the present moment and doing what you believe needs to be done to the best of your ability in the present moment. And that applies to, so many areas of our lives, not just work or schoolwork. It applies to parenthood. It applies to your asana practice. If you happen to be someone who practices yoga, the physical practice of yoga, sometimes we can get really caught up in perfecting a pose, right? Really getting into that pose, or getting that arm balance, or, reaching a little bit further towards our toes, or even a standing balance, being able to master that standing balance where, you're not falling out of the balance or you're not wobbling, right? We get really attached to this outcome where we think that we were striving for this particular outcome, when really we just need to be in the present moment and perform the action to the best of our ability in that present moment and not be worried about the outcome. This happens in meditation too. This is why a lot of people think that they can't meditate, because they sit down to meditate and they're automatically thinking about how bad they are at meditating because they're having thoughts, which is a natural, part of meditation. And so they spin themselves into a tizzy once more because they're trying to focus on an outcome. The outcome of sitting there completely peacefully without any thoughts running through their heads, right? They're focusing on that outcome rather than just being in the present moment, allowing it to be what it is, and focusing on whatever it is you focus on in meditation, whether it be your breath or a mantra, or a sound to the best of your ability, or a visualization, all of these things. So the next time you find yourself, worrying about the outcome of your actions, try to take a step back and really just have the intention that you're going to perform each action to the best of your ability. And you're not going to worry about the outcome, and you're not going to worry about what could go wrong, and you're not going to worry about what other people will say or not say. You're going to stay present. So that's what I invite you to do. I apologize for the phone ringing in the background. That was unexpected. And here's what happens when we do that. When we can let go, right? When we can say, I'm not going to worry about the outcome of this project, or this physical posture I'm getting into, or this party that I'm planning, or how my kids are going to turn out at the end of this parenting journey, right? I'm going to let go of all that. I'm just going to do the best I can in this present moment. When we let go of those feelings of attachment, that is when happiness seeps in. And that's when we actually allow ourselves to come alive, and we live fully and we live abundantly. Okay, next one. Aparigraha in parenting. Okay, I've seen this, I've experienced this. I think all parents have this to a certain degree, right? So we become parents and we have this huge job of raising children. It's not an easy job, especially in the world that we live in today. And with each step that we take, we often have in the background, it may be unconscious, right? Not be something that you may be thinking about in your conscious mind all the time. But we know that our time with our children as their parent that they listen to and come to for guidance and advice and lessons will, inevitably come to an end per se, right? Where they're always there, always, but they will go off. They will live their lives. They will become independent adults living their lives. And we won't have the same kind of influence that we do when they are younger and in our homes and we're raising them. And so I think there is this fear in the background that we only have so much time with them and we want them to turn out well, right? We want them to, whatever that means for you, right? So that could mean just good citizens of the world. It could mean financially successful, independent. We might have specific visions for them as far as the profession that they might be or do one day, or, getting married or owning a home, or whatever that vision is for you, for your child or children. And we have this attachment to that outcome, right? We have this attachment to what we want how we want our children to end up at the end of this parenting journey. And part of that is because it is a reflection of us and us as parents. And we expend a tremendous amount of mental and physical energy trying to achieve this goal, trying to raise them in what we consider to be correctly, teach them the lessons that we think that are important, get them a good education, give them enriching extracurricular activities and camps and vacations and experiences, and sometimes even, cultivating friend groups because we want them to have certain friends. And it's exhausting. I mean, if you do this, like most parents do, it's totally consuming and exhausting. And we do it usually because the thing in the forefront of our mind, the thought in the forefront of our mind is that that's what being a good parent is, right? We sacrifice our current joy and we worry and we plan and we sacrifice time and money to create a future we desire for our children, while we're completely missing out on the wonder of the present moment because we're so attached to this outcome in the future that we want for our children. And it's hard, it's sticky. The concept of Aparigraha is sticky because I remember when I was first learning it, I thought, well, okay, so I'm just not supposed to care. I'm just not supposed to care, let's say in this example, about how my kids turn out. I'm not supposed to care about how that work project ends up, or like this podcast. I'm just not supposed to care how it turns out. But that is not what we're saying in this situation. We're saying we do care. We are deeply involved, but deeply present without concern for the outcome in the future, right? So we do what's right in the present moment, what feels right and loving in the present moment without fear of what's going to happen in the future. And that will guide the present moment and our actions in the present moment. Aparigraha in experiences is also a big one to think about. So I mentioned my vacation, but how about our attachments to, our relationship with our partner, right? How we think our partner should be or should respond to us when we have a certain interaction. How about our attachment to change in the workplace? I actually happen to work somewhere where change it's actually kind of ridiculous, like the amount of change that goes on a regular basis where I work. I mean, things are just constantly changing. It almost becomes comical at some point. But people are very resistant to that change often. There's a lot of grumbling, there's a lot of dissatisfaction, there's a lot of, people being negative about the change because we become attached, right? We become attached to our ways of doing things, and we become attached to why we do things, right? But the why can change. And often in medicine, the why does change very frequently as we get more information and new research comes out and more data comes in, right? So the why, we get attached to the why. We get attached to our experiences, let's say, in a particular activity that we do. I can tell you, for example, in yoga, I've been practicing yoga as the asana practice for 26 years now. And I, particularly in the past couple of years, notice really significant changes in my body and what I'm able to do in my practice. And I noticed how I was really, I didn't feel good about that. I really had a lot of negative feelings about the fact that I just couldn't do some of the things that I had always done before, and that the practice was harder for me despite regular practice, right? It's still practicing multiple times a week. And yet despite that, things were becoming more challenging for me because my body is changing, and I had to let go, right? And this is what Aparigraha is really about. It's about letting go. When something does not serve us anymore, we need to be able to peacefully let go, to not continue clinging to that thing, right? So I could continue to cling to the way that my body was in the past and try to force myself to do things that are probably not a good idea for me right now. Try to really just, pretend that what is happening is not happening, but that doesn't serve me, right? I put myself in a position of possibly hurting myself. I'm in denial of what the present moment is. I am not living the practice, which I so firmly believe in. That is not living the practice, which is taking me out of alignment with what I believe. And there are many examples of this in our lives where we just keep trying to fit something into our lives or be a certain way or have certain experiences or expectations because that's how they were before. Have you ever, let's say, gone to a restaurant and had a meal and it was like amazing, next level amazing? You were like, this was incredible. Oh my God, I have to come back and get this meal again. And you come back the next time and you order the same meal at the same restaurant and it's just not as good. For whatever reason, it's just not as good. You can't even put your finger on why. And you're so disappointed. And you're like, oh man, was there a different chef or what is going on? I'm so disappointed. I was so looking forward to this meal because it was so good the first time around. That is attachment, right? We are attached to that experience. We are attached to the sense of satisfaction and enjoyment that we had from that meal, and we want to repeat it. And sometimes things are just not repeatable, and they're not meant to be repeatable, and we need to let them go. We need to have gratitude for having had the experience, but now let go of the experience and allow life to bring us the next experience, right? Because when we're grasping and clinging onto things that really are no longer serving us, or no longer there, we don't have any room for the new experiences that are going to bring us those feelings that we were really desiring. Because in each and every one of these things, really what we're desiring is the feelings that come with them. So we have to make room for those feelings. We have to make room for new experiences by decluttering the mind and unattaching from things that don't serve us anymore. Here's another one. Again, related to emotions and feelings. We have a lot when it comes to this. Have you ever been in the midst of an experience? Maybe it was a vacation, and maybe it was a really fantastic vacation, or maybe it was the beginning of a new relationship and you were falling in love and everything was amazing. Or maybe it was, a particular part of your parenting journey where it was just, you guys were just vibing. Like you were feeling very connected to your child. You guys were really enjoying each other. There weren't a lot of issues going on. And you're like, wow, this parenting thing is like amazing right now, right? And you're in the midst of this great experience and you start thinking, when is this going to end? What's going to happen? Like, something's going to happen. Something's going to come and mess this up, right? So you are fearful of an outcome that hasn't happened yet, and you get ripped out of the present moment and ripped out of the joy of the present moment by the fear that something will change. I'm spoiler alert here, okay? So if you don't want to hear this, fast forward at least 30 seconds. Spoiler alert. Whatever the good thing is, it's going to end. Okay. And I don't say that to be pessimistic. I say it because it's true. I say it because there's only really one certainty in this life, only one thing that we can expect without a shadow of a doubt, and that is that change is inevitable. Everything changes all the time. Things are changing in your body constantly. Your cells are turning over, your blood is turning over, your bones are turning over. Everything in nature changes, seasons change, weather changes, the trees change, light changes. If you are a nature lover like me, you may have noticed that you can look at the same exact thing every day and it never looks the same. Maybe you have, sorry about the phone again, maybe you have a porch or a deck with a pretty view, or you go to a local park. Maybe you go to a beach or a lake that you like to sit at and relax. Wherever you go that you've spent a decent amount of time just kind of sitting, looking around, contemplating, relaxing, taking in the scenery. If you've ever done that, you may have noticed that it looks different every single day, right? So maybe you're a beach goer. I personally am not. I'm a mountain girl, but I know lots of people who they go to the beach every year and they have the same spot that they go and they set up their stuff on the beach, and you're spending every day there and you're noticing that every day it just looks a little bit different. It's the scenery just somehow changes, and it's often hard to even put your finger on exactly what it is. But there's something between the play of light, the weather that day, the sky, the scents in the air, the wind and how much of a breeze there is, the animals, maybe the people. There's something about the place that every day seems new. And not even every day, but actually every hour of every day, it seems somewhat different. And sometimes the change is subtle, right? Sometimes it is just the light's a little bit different, or the waves are a little bit rougher if you're at the beach. But sometimes it's stark, right? Sometimes it's, there's thunder clouds and it's pouring, or the wind is whipping, or, nature's doing what it does. But we are nature. We forget that we are not separate from nature. We are part of nature, and our lives play out just like that favorite looking spot of yours. We're constantly changing, and everyone in our orbit is also constantly changing. And sometimes that change is subtle, and sometimes it's stark. And sometimes that change feels like a warm, sunny day, and other times it feels like a dreary drizzle or a whipping storm. But just like the weather, the seasons, and the storms of our lives, they're going to keep changing. And just like the changes we see in nature, we need them all, right? We might say that we prefer having a bright, sunny, warm day, and we would, if we could had our control, that we would make every day a bright, sunny, warm day. But there is beauty and nourishment in the rain. And when we can let go of our attachment to what we think we want, we can embrace what is and see the gifts that it has to offer. We came here to experience all that life has to offer. There is no light without darkness. There is no sun without rain clouds, and there is no joy without sorrow. They are two sides of the same coin, light and dark. We need them both. And that doesn't mean it has to be what we would label as bad change, right? I'm saying that things are going to constantly change. They're not always going to change and it's going to be bad, right? And I say bad in air quotes because really things just change. There is really no good or bad. It's only our perception of them. But we have preferences, right? We have things we would prefer and we would not prefer. And sometimes that change will be something that's easy and makes you happy. And sometimes it will be something that challenges you. But it's all needed. Every part of it is needed. And if we can really adopt this non-attachment to things, to outcomes, to feelings, to experiences, to people's behaviors, that bind us in our life, because that's what happens. The attachments bind us and make us dissatisfied. And Aparigraha teaches us to let go, to allow the change, to be present in the moment with what is, and not allow attachment to the experiences of the past or expectations of the future or contrast in the present moment dictate how we feel in the now. And what does that give us? It gives us freedom. It gives us total freedom. If we can trust in what the universe has to offer us, we can be free to allow and have all the experience of life and all the depth and all the beauty and really be fully present for it, really experience it fully. Because when we are not fully present, when we're not fully accepting the moment as it is, we are not experiencing the depth of what life has to offer. We're really skimming the surface because most of our attention is in a different spot where it's fighting. Our energy is fighting what is instead of allowing what is. And we miss the beauty and the depth of that moment. I can tell you that my vacation was definitely not what I would have preferred. It was not what I envisioned, but my attachment to that vision, to that preference, took me out of allowing me to be fully present and to fully enjoy what we did have on that trip. And, I'm human just like everyone else, right? Just because I teach this stuff and I try to practice this stuff on a regular basis in my life doesn't mean that I am not infallible, doesn't mean I'm not human. It means I'm on the journey just like you guys, and I'm practicing just like you guys, and I'm making mistakes just like you guys. And then I'm trying to become aware of them and not do them again in the future. But, such is life. I probably will. But maybe I will catch myself sooner, or maybe it'll be a while before I have that experience again because I became aware of it. I wanted to end this podcast with a quote by Deborah Adele. She wrote a book called The Yamas and Niyamas, which I reference in the other episodes, the other Yama and Niyama episodes that I'm doing. And I really like this quote. And it says, "A bird cannot hold its perch and fly. Neither can we grasp anything and be free." So be free, my friends. Release the attachments, start to becoming aware of them, and then consciously choose to release them and see how you feel. See how much more joy you can feel. See how much more gratitude you can feel. See how much more connection you can feel. See how much more peace you can feel by choosing to let go and to trust that what is meant for you it can't miss you. It's on target. It's meant for you and it will not miss you, and it will make sure that you have the experiences that you need to have in this life. So with all that being said, let me leave you with a few mindful moments, exercises, invitations to explore your relationship with attachment or non-attachment in your life. So the first thing you could do is maybe this is fairly easy. We'll start easy, go easy to hard. Maybe take a little look at your physical surroundings, whether that be your home, your office, even your car, and look at how much physical clutter there is. How much stuff are you holding on to that you don't need, that is taking up space, it's taking up energy because you have to keep up with it. And it's not only taking up physical space, but it's taking up mental space. And how much are you attached to those things? And if you decided to let go, how would you feel afterwards? Would you feel lighter? Would you feel freer? Would you feel more spacious if you decided to and maybe do an experiment and do it? Pick one small thing. I'm not saying that I want you to go and clean out your entire house, although I have dreams of having time to clean out every drawer and closet in my entire house. But sometimes it's just a drawer. It's just cleaning out one drawer or cleaning out your car. Again, if you have kids, the car, oh my gosh, it's such a receptacle for junk, right? For wrappers, for toys, for cups, for things that fall out of backpacks, right? And we don't often take the time to clean it out. So maybe just clean out your car, or maybe just clean out that one drawer that just gets on your nerves all the time because it's so full of junk that it's hard to close or you can't find anything in it, and see how you feel. So that would be one. The next one I would invite you to is ask yourself, how often are you imposing your expectations on people and things unconsciously, right? Because we're not doing this. We're not trying to do this. It is our subconscious that we're demanding that they give us the feeling that we desire, right? They give us comfort. They give us safety. They give us joy or happiness. They give us respect. And how do your expectations keep you limited and often disgruntled because people don't meet them, right? So if you have this expectation that your partner is going to comfort you and they don't because they're human and they're having a day and maybe they're distracted or stressed themselves and they don't comfort you, and now you're really, you're just mad. You're just pissed off at them, right? How is that limiting you? How is that taking away from your freedom? Just play with it, right? All of these concepts, again, we play. We play. And I'm inviting you to practice your letting go muscle, right? So we have all kinds of muscles, including a holding on muscle. And our holding on muscle is very strong. Like we could win some sort of lifting championship usually with our holding muscle. But our letting go muscle is weak because it's underdeveloped. We don't practice it. So I invite you to become aware of when you're clinging to experiences, to thoughts, to habits, to beliefs, to that self-image. I once again, when I realized that my asana practice was changing, I had a particular image of myself and how I practice yoga and what I could do as a yogi. That was a big self-image change for me that I had to let go of. So practice that letting go muscle, and see how you feel. See what kind of freedom it brings into your life. All right. I hope this was helpful. This is a tough one. I'm going to say, in my personal opinion, of all the yamas and niyamas, I think this is the hardest one. I think it's the hardest one to understand. And I think it's the hardest one to put into practice in life. I mentioned how sneaky, Aparigraha is. It just really is stealth. And it shows up in so many different areas of our lives. So if you have, more questions, I didn't fully explain it in a way that you could understand, or you're like, she's crazy, I don't get it at all, please, email me or reach out to me on Instagram. I'd be happy to have a longer conversation about this, answer any questions you have. Maybe it's a topic you want us to cover on Coffee with Coaches. I don't know. I'd also love to know what you think about these Yama and Niyama episodes, and if they're resonating with you, and if you're seeing how they relate to your life. I try to take these kind of more abstract concepts and use real world examples to help you understand them. So I'm hoping that I'm being effective at that. Have a wonderful week, my friends. I can't wait to be in touch with you again next week. The kids are going back to school soon, in about a week, so I will be back on track with my usual episodes, and I just can't wait. I can't wait for everything that I have to share with you. Have a wonderful day. Bye. Hi, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode or any of our other episodes, I ask that you please like the show, follow, subscribe, or share. The way that podcasts work is the more people that do one of those things, the more likely it is that when someone's looking for a podcast to listen to, our show will pop up for them. I started this podcast because I really see there's a great need in our world for people to feel more peace, joy, love, and acceptance in their lives. And I think we can do that when we have a greater sense of self-awareness. We can become conscious creators of our own lives. And I'm seeking to do that for as many people as possible. So if you could help me by liking, sharing, or subscribing to the show, I'd really appreciate it. And hopefully someone hears a conversation that changes their life. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time. Much love.